Home ownership in the UK is something that people talk about quite a lot. There's all generation rent and there's generation buy, and owning a property traditionally in the UK is something that should be very prestigious. It's a huge moment, but as time goes on, the average age that an individual or a couple purchase their first property is getting later and later in life. Back in the olden times, this was around 21 years old, but as time goes on now, the average age is around 34 years old that somebody has enough money to buy their first property. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to take you through how and why I bought a £600,000 flat at age 25, and I'll go through what drove me to buy the flat and how much I paid for it, and then I'm going to do a second video which goes into all the figures in loads more detail. But in this one, enjoy, have a look around, and I'll talk you through the story of how and why I bought this flat. So nothing too crazy in the entrance area, but this is the lovely front door itself. Got a few coat hangers and coats, and then there's loads of shoes and whatnot down here. So this is where we get everything off. As you can probably notice as I walk through the flat, there are tons of downlighters everywhere, which is really nice actually. It brightens up the flat and just keeps it nice and fresh. So let's go through to the lounge. So this is actually quite a big room. So I've flipped the camera around and you can see it's actually not a bad space. So we've got loads of stuff going on here. Got a lovely Christmas tree because it's just approaching December. Lovely, I don't know what it is, probably a 50-inch TV with Bose soundbar. Maybe it's the Bose 500, Bose 300, something like that. But yeah, I wanted to create a really nice warm space. We've got the Philips Hue smart bar lighting behind the TV, so you can see here and here. And actually it's just kind of two simple bars here that then you can change it to loads of different colours. We're also plant mad as well, so you can see we've got a nice big, I think this is a Kentia palm or something like that. And then a smaller plant there, could not tell you the name of that, as well as another plant here as well. And there's kind of a plant theme going on. I think when you're in London, and if you kind of get an idea of what it's like outside, there's lots of concrete and not much greenery. So it's all the rave. So yeah, it's a really nice space. I love it. And it came as a kind of blank white canvas, and we painted the walls kind of a nice dark grey colour just to bring something else into the room. Got some lovely artwork from the range as well. The kitchen is open plan. It's really nice actually because it makes it very social. So when you're cooking dinner and you've got friends around or something like that, you can cook some dinner here and then you can actually look towards the table and the lounge. It just makes it nice and open. But it's got all the mod cons. So we've got dishwasher, washing machine, double fridge freezer here as well. So there's also just a really nice little balcony area as well. So you can kind of sit outside in the morning, have some breakfast, and just enjoy the sun until it disappears around the corner. So I wanted to share a bit of a story around how I bought this flat and how everything came about. Now, I bought this flat around January 2019, and I'd kind of secretly been planning it in my head for a while, but didn't think I'd actually go through with it and buy the flat. And it's quite strange to think that I kind of went through that entire buying process back then. It's quite a challenging thing to go through with a lot of money that's involved. There's a degree of risk as well, but here we are, and I wouldn't look back. London's been a little bit turbulent in the market over the past kind of year and a half, but that doesn't matter. I've got a great flat, I've got a home where I'm not contracted on a tenancy agreement, I've got fantastic lodgers, and it kind of works really well financially. In the flat, it's very expensive, and I'll go through in a separate video how all the finances work and how I bought the flat, how much I paid for it, what the mortgage is, the rent, the service charges, how all that works. I'll do that in another video. The main thing that made me want to buy this flat is that I had my eyes on it for quite a while, and it's in the local area. So I was renting in a flat by the Olympic Park in East London, and I'd been living in this flat for about a good 2.5 years, and the rent was about £750 a month. And what I'd actually worked out is I'd looked at those kind of 2.5 years and added in all the rent, things like the small bits of deposit as well, and I had spent over £30,000 on rent living in London, which for someone who has lived up north and rents are like £400 a month, they're really cheap. £750 a month, £800 a month, it was increasing and increasing, and I'd spent over 30 grand. And for me, that was the moment when I realised I need to buy a place and actually start putting money back in my own pocket through a mortgage and through having a lodger. So after I realised I'd spent all of this money, I decided to save as much money as possible. Now, at the time, I was sitting on about £30,000, so I'd been saving that since I was quite young. I've had a series of freelance businesses. I did lots of graphic design stuff, some search engine optimization. So I had a pot of money that I knew I could use, but it wasn't quite enough for London prices, and especially living in Zone 2 in East London, in quite a nice area in the Olympic Park. Now, I did something very, very stupid, and if I remember right, around January 2018, that's when Bitcoin went on a huge surge in the market, and it was just gaining loads and loads and loads of value. And I would never recommend this, but I actually put all of my savings onto Bitcoin when it was about 6,000 US dollars for one Bitcoin, and I saw it skyrocket, and I could not believe what I was seeing. But that initial price of £6,000 went up to 10, 15, and I think at the peak it might have touched about 18, 19,000 if I remember right, somewhere around there. And I'd managed to turn this £30,000 or $40,000 into over $100,000, and I couldn't believe I was seeing six figures in the account. I wish I would have sold at that point, as I'm sure a lot of people in the same boat at that time would have thought as well. Actually, I just let it sit, and I was trying to do a bit of a quick investment here. It wasn't going to be a long-term thing, but the price started tanking, and it went back down and down and down and down and down. And I got to the point where I'd lost all of those earnings, all of that profit had just completely been wiped out. So I pulled my money out of the market, and it probably cost me about £2,000 that I'd lost. So I was kind of sitting again on about £28,000 to £30,000, but I'd been saving more money in those 2 months that kind of big surge happened. So I actually ended up worse off. I would not recommend it. I almost lost a lot more money than that, so I'm glad that I pulled out at the rate that I put the money in at and didn't lose too much. But I just kept on saving. I actually then put my money into loads of tech stocks, which is a mixture of the Nasdaq and S&P 500, which typically do quite well. I've been doing about 10% a year at the moment, but investing a bit more selectively, I managed to get around 20% returns. So it was doing really, really well. The £30,000 had kind of turned into like 35, 36, and then I'd have a bit more spare cash on the side and a bonus. So I was just around shy of £40,000, and that's what I used to buy this flat. So I ended up buying a 40% share of a £567,000 flat, which to me is absolutely ridiculous for a two-bed flat, but that's London prices for you. So I've got a 40% share with a shared ownership scheme in the UK. I've used a £40,000 deposit on the property, and then a little bit more for things like legal fees, the surveys, mortgage costs, etc. And as I've mentioned, I already rent out the spare room, which is a great way to cover a lot of the service charge and the rent that comes with being a shared owner. So as a shared owner, you pay both rent and service charge, and it can be an absolute killer because the total cost of the flat per month is about £2,000, whereas the rent from the spare room covers just over £1,000. So when you've got bills, including like all the council tax, all the utilities, you've got rent, service charges, mortgage, it really adds up. So that spare room really, really helps out. And the great thing is, since lockdown and since the virus came about, I'm saving loads of money, not commuting every day, not buying lunch in the city every day, which is great. So I'm managing to save a decent pot of money to then put onto the next investment property, and it really has given me the bug to start investing in more properties now that I kind of can see and understand the power that property has. I hope you found that useful or interesting or inspiring. If you've got any questions whatsoever about the flat and the apartment, then please just drop a comment. I'll more than happily answer them for you. And I'll release another video going through the figures in a bit more detail and how I bought a £600,000 flat at age 25, which is quite crazy when you think about it. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on my next video.